All right. Hi there, my name is Liz Derstine, trail name Mercury, and you may also know me as Pink Feathers from my newsletter. And I just completed the Pacific Crest Trail. Yay! I did it in 69 days, 13 hours, 53 minutes. It was the third fastest known time for women that I know of. I mean, I guess that's why it's called fastest known time. And as far as I know, it's the 8th fastest time ever in the self-supported fashion, man or woman. And yeah, I thought it would be really cool to do a Q&A for my newsletter readers and for anyone else who wants to tune in. And yeah, I guess, so just to give an idea of my journey. So the Pacific Crest Trail, it goes through California, Oregon, Washington. It starts in Mexico at the US-Mexico border, ends at the Canada-Washington border. And yeah, I guess a typical day for me would be waking up and starting hiking really early, like around 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning when it's still dark out, and then hiking all day, taking minimal breaks, going usually until 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. Around sunset, I don't mind starting hiking really early in the morning in the dark, but I really like to end before it gets completely dark out. It's just how I like to operate. And I hiked in the self-supported fashion, meaning that I carried all of my own supplies. I didn't have anyone meet me or have any planned support along the way. I mailed packages to myself. I mailed supplies to myself at towns along the way. I also purchased things at, general stores, convenience stores, and places like that along the way. And I walked every step of the trail. I also walked to all of my resupply stops and back. I never set foot in a car. I never hitchhiked. So I really had a truly unbroken footpath all the way from Mexico to Canada. The questions that I'm going to answer today were sent in from readers and viewers like yourselves. And if I do not, or if I did not, if you have a question and I didn't answer it today, feel free to drop it in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. This first question is for John. What are your must-have gear items or bonus items? So I guess for gear items, we could do a really deep dive into gear, and I am actually going to make a whole video just for that, like what's in my pack, what did I bring? But in a nutshell, my top gear items, I'd say were the big three. So my pack, my sleeping bag, and my tent. And yeah, for my pack, I used a 45 liter pack by Mountain Hardwear. This is actually coming out next year. But yeah, it's very lightweight. It has a frame for a little bit of structure, and it's made of a nice waterproof material, so that came in handy. That was great. For my sleeping bag, it was Mountain Hardwear also. It was a 40-degree rated sleeping bag, so kind of like a lightweight summer sleeping bag. And that worked out really well. And if there were ever any super duper cold nights, I'd just layer up with the other apparel items that I brought. And then I also used the Mountain Hardwear Nimbus UL1 tent. That is out now, and that worked out really well. It's a super versatile tent that it has its own really lightweight frame, which was great because I could set it up anywhere, and it had its own kind of self-supporting structure, which worked out when I didn't have terrain that I could just stick stakes into to hold it down. I slept in all kinds of interesting places. I slept on top of sand. I slept on top of slab rock. I once slept in a pit toilet. No joke, which having the tent was nice because I could at least keep the bugs and grossness out. I slept under a bridge. I slept and like kind of nestled into a Joshua tree. Like, I don't know. And the tent worked out great in all of those situations. And some bonus items. These were very personal. My partner, Chris, actually sewed some really great items for me. They were these, I think I actually have them here. So Chris, I don't have all of them with me right now, but he made me these really great like ditty bags. So like they were waterproof bags made of Dyneema material. So like sturdy, waterproof, lightweight material. And one bag I kept my electronics in, one bag I kept my toiletries in. He also made me this really neat like foldable wallet, and then he also made me this really cool pillow, and this pillow is holding my apparel that I wore for the journey, and you can see it has the zip here, and then you can flip it inside out and it has a nice fleecy inside, and then you can restuff it with clothing and then sleep on it at night with like a soft surface. So that felt really special to have handmade items from Chris with me on the trip, just because it made me feel loved and taken care of. So that was great. For near hypothermic moments, this question is also from John. Did you wish you had brought different gear? Yeah, so I definitely had a really not fun day. It was supposed to be my last day in Oregon, coming from Mount Hood down to Cascade Locks, and it was just like a rainy, drizzly day, not a big deal, but then the rain just got worse and worse, and so my core was warm, like my rain jacket was holding up fine, and like I was wearing enough layers to stay warm, but I was like, if I get any wetter or colder, like I still had some dry stuff with me, but I didn't want to get it out because I didn't want to get that wet too, because then like, what if all my stuff is wet? So yeah, for those moments, it would have been really nice to have rain pants. I did not bring rain pants with me, and it would have also been nice to have like shell gloves, and I just brought like a lightweight pair of gloves with me that they worked great for like 99% of the time, but they're not waterproof. So yeah, I could have used waterproof gloves and waterproof pants, but I don't necessarily regret not bringing them because the times I would have needed them were so slim. I think the solutions I came up with in the moment were pretty good. So after my rainy day in town, after my rainy day, I was kind of like traumatized because I got so cold and wet. And so the next time I got into a town, it was at Cascade Locks, I requested a nice big trash bag. And if you followed my adventures before, you know I love a good trash bag for staying dry. But yeah, it was like an industrial size, and I opened up a hole in the bottom for my legs, and then I used the drawstring to cinch the trash bag around my waist, and I used that as a way to navigate through like wet, brushy sections, aka the Cascade car wash, as my friend Katie called it, just so I could stay dry when all of the like overgrowth was really wet. And then I also used tape and sandwich bags to just create some waterproof mitts for my hands. So those actually worked in a pinch, and it saved me from having to bring like a whole other set of clothing items that I just don't want to take with me for the entire journey. Okay, these next few questions are from Mike. How did you avoid foot blisters? So I got some blisters. Not to be like gross, we don't have to do close-ups here, but I got mostly blisters like here on my heel and sometimes on the outside of my heel. And my toes actually did okay. But that was just in the beginning, I think, when I was getting used to, the sheer amount of miles that I was hiking. And eventually I just taped my blisters and kept them clean. I didn't pop them. I would kind of just let them, if they were gonna pop on their own. Just because I'm always worried about getting an infection, because I have gotten infections in the past and it's not fun, and it's something that could have you end up in urgent care, which is not ideal when you're trying to set a record. So yeah, I would just put a Band-Aid on, put some tape on top of that, keep them clean, and just kind of let the blisters run their course. And eventually my feet were just calloused and leathery. Yum. Yeah, sorry, gross. And that's kind of how they still are. That's kind of how they still are in this moment. And I feel like I just need to always wear socks for the next couple of months while they come off. Sorry, that's really gross. All right. How did you shave off pack weight? So I actually didn't weigh my pack or every single item ounce for ounce in my pack. I might still do that now after the hike, just out of curiosity. But before my hike, I honestly just tried to take only the things that I thought I would absolutely need. And I actually did not have the most super duper ultra lightweight setup, despite having a lot of ultra light items like my pack and my sleeping bag and my tent and my ditty bags. I had a lot of ultralight things, but I also made sure to take everything I needed, which, I didn't skimp. So I guess, the question is, how did you shave off pack weight? The very simple, easy answer is I only took what I needed. And some of those things are actual needs, and some of those things are psychological needs. So yeah, a lot of people ask what my base weight is. I don't actually know. My guess is probably 12 pounds. And the further along I got on my hike, honestly, the less I cared about weight and the more I cared about having what I needed. And there were some things that I initially skimped on. And this might sound like a wasteful answer, but or it might, I feel bad, but I ended up using a ton of wet wipes for cleanup in the desert on trail. And when I've hiked the AT and other places on the East Coast, I don't know, I think maybe because it's just not as dry and dusty out here, there's not as much cleanup involved. But in the desert, but then actually especially in Northern California, where there were a lot of burn sections to go through, the trail is just very powdery and ashy, and I just felt every pore of my skin, every crevasse, every nook and cranny, everything was just covered in dirt. And that can lead to chafing, that can lead to infections. It can also just lead to not feeling very good. So in my resupplies, I sent myself just maybe a few squares. But then when I would get into town, I'd buy an entire pack of them, just so that I could just always clean up as much as I needed to at night. And a better solution to that would have been bringing a bandana and using that to wash up in streams and stuff. I don't know why, I just didn't think of bringing a bandana with me, and that's something I would bring with me next time. But that's just one example. Another example is food. It took a while to build up my hiker appetite, especially starting in the desert in the middle of June. In the beginning, I had trouble eating anything except maybe dried mango and fruity candy and stuff like that. But as the hike went on and as I got to cooler climates like the Sierra, and you know, I had been hiking for a while at that point, I needed a ton of calories. Like, I went through my food so quickly, and yeah, that's something I would like never want to skimp on. So like, take the food you need. Don't go bare bones with the food. Yeah. Okay, next question. Why do you prefer your sleeping pad over an inflatable one? That one's easy. The first time I used an inflatable sleeping pad, it got a hole, and then I slept like on the ground, and it was cold and not comfortable. So yeah, this is actually the first sleeping pad I ever got, and I trimmed it down just so I didn't have excess foam or weight. Not that I don't really care as much about that anymore, like shaving off every tiny little bit, but yeah, it's reliable and easy to set up, and it saves time. So lots of reasons to stick with the foam sleeping pad. All right, this next question is from John. Favorite snack along the way? That's easy, and we're talking snacks that are like a shelf-stable snack you can take along on the hike. I think I have one here. It is dun, 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 the jumbo honey bun. Yeah, this I didn't have these toward the beginning of my hike. I think just somehow I forgot how delicious they are. But yeah, somewhere along the way, I bought one of these from a gas station and was like, holy cow, these are so good. I mean, let's see, 480 calories in a jumbo honey bun. It's delicious and bready and sugary. And I liked these most first thing in the morning, and they were also really nice as an afternoon pick-me-up. And every so often I'd, come up to a highway or a road and someone might have trail magic set up, or I might find a cooler that someone had left for hikers full of soda, and a nice ice cold can of Coca-Cola also became one of my favorite things on this hike. I don't really drink soda in my everyday life, but on the trail, a honey bun and a can of Coke were just like afternoon magic, and it would wake me up and I'd just get in a bunch of miles and feel really good. So yeah. Okay. Also another food question. This is also from John. What food did you dream about on trail? That is also an easy answer. Cheeseburgers. I probably had, I don't know. I had so many. I have to tally it up, but anytime I got into town and was able to order a hot meal, a cheeseburger or a double cheeseburger would be my number one choice. And again, it's not something I'm eating all the time in my everyday life, but it just had everything I wanted. Yeah, cheeseburgers. They had protein, fat, carbs. They're delicious. Yeah, so that was usually just like, when I thought of getting, I'm just going to leave it at that. Cheeseburgers were great. Okay. This next question is from Jeremy. What was your lowest low and highest high? Oh, I had many lows and many highs, but one of my lows was actually on the last day, and it wasn't a huge deal at the end of the day, but But, you know, it was my last day. I was excited to see Chris and my friends. I was excited to finish. I was motivated to make good time. I started hiking at 12:45 a.m. So this was day 70, my very last day. And yeah, I got up early, hiked for about 5 or 6 hours. I went by Hart's Pass, which is the last kind of like civilization. There's a parking lot. Yeah, it's the last road out before getting to the northern terminus. So I checked my watch and I went by at around 5 in the morning. And then a couple hours later, or maybe, yeah, like an hour later, I was like, I'm going to lay down and take a nap, just like 8 minutes, because that was just usually what I did around 6 in the morning after hiking for a while. It was like a little reset. And so I threw down my mat, laid down, set my timer for 8 minutes, and then, slept for 8 minutes. My alarm went off and I got up and started hiking north again, or so I thought, until I was hiking along and then noticed some cars and a parking lot. And I was like, this is weird. I don't remember another trailhead between Hart's Pass and the northern terminus. And it turned out after my nap, I had hiked right back the way I came, going the wrong direction. And when I looked down at my watch, it was a little after 7 a.m. So I went to I went through Hart's Pass the first time at 5 a.m., hiked and came back, and then it was 7 a.m. So 2 hours wasted. I was very upset and just, I don't know. I threw a little temper tantrum, but then I just decided that I wouldn't let it, ruin my day, and I decided to just run as much as I could the rest of the way to make up for the time, and I made good time, and it all worked out. So that was kind of like a superficial low, but maybe one of my lows was, there was one instance back in the desert. I was hiking the LA Aqueduct, which it's just a very long, like 20 miles of flat paved concrete that it's very exposed. You're in the sun. A lot of thru-hikers actually hike this section at night, but just because of the timing, it didn't work out for me to hike it at night. I hiked it during the day, and it was just so hot and miserable, and I had been mostly hiking solo to that point. Most other hikers had started much earlier than me and were way farther ahead, and I just felt like lonely and sad, and I was doing this really hard thing, and I missed my parents, and I missed Chris, and I missed being taken care of, because I had been so self-sufficient, which is very empowering, but when you're doing something that's really hard, it's just like sometimes you just you want the people in your life, and you want to be taken care of, and I don't know, that was just a really hard day, and I really struggled, and I got through it, but it was a very trying moment on the trail. But yeah, highest high, I would say, like, one of my first days in the Sierra, getting over Forester Pass was a really big high, because all day and like the days leading up to it, I had been reading all these comments on the Far Out app, which is like an interactive map that hikers can leave comments on. A lot of people were saying the snow was really sketchy and that it was dangerous and that they didn't feel safe. And yeah, I don't know. I felt very fearful of the snow and the ice and like what would be up there and whether I would be safe, and the timing of it would also be kind of at the end of the day, and everyone's saying it's better to hike in the morning and worse in the afternoon, because in the afternoon the snow melts and it gets slushy. And so I just really built up this climb and mainly the descent, the snow coming off of it, in my head. And I was getting so anxious to a point where I was just like crying all day. I felt so scared of climbing Forester Pass. And the closer I got to the pass, there were hikers coming southbound, so like walking toward me, that had been up the pass that day. And I was like, how was it? And they were like, oh, it was totally fine. Like, you'll be fine. I was like, really? You're like, yeah, you'll be great. And I was also like messaging my friend Katie, trail name Raven, on my inReach, and she had hiked the trail the past year, and she also said like, it'll be fine. Don't worry, it'll be fine. And it just, it took a lot of convincing from other people, I guess, that it would be okay. And yeah, I climbed that pass at the end of that day, and I just felt so proud of myself for just kind of getting over the anxiety I had, and just doing it, like making the choice to do it anyway. And when I reached the top of the pass, I just let out this huge cheer, and it just felt like such a triumphant moment. And then when I hiked down the other side, just like everyone said, in person, the snow was not bad. And I was just like, I should never read online comments again. It's just, it just made it seem way worse than it actually was. And that ended up being true for a lot of things on trail. Like there's, I don't know. How you feel about how dangerous you think something is. I mean, I guess it's just all relative, but I had many other moments where I felt nervous or anxious about something that was coming up, and it was always worse in my mind than it ended up being on trail. So it was kind of like this lesson that I had to learn over and over and over again. Okay, this message is from Ella. Ella, she is the women's self-supported record holder on the Washington section of the PCT. She's done all kinds of amazing hikes, and she's a really cool person. So this next question is from her. How did you keep motivation to get so little sleep even when the record was out of reach? That is a great question. On a similar note, I had other people ask me, like, when did you decide to give up on the record? And I don't know, I never decided to give up on the record. I mean, I really honestly did my best. I tried my best every day and got as far as I could every day. And I was just talking with a friend about this, but you have your physical limits, but you also have your psychological limits. And so, like, yes, maybe I physically could have gone farther or done more than I did. But I don't know, like I felt pretty like maxed out. Like I was hiking maybe on average, I don't know, like 17 hours a day. But then I don't know, I took forever to get ready at night, like for sleep, eating and getting set up and cleaning up. And then getting ready in the morning was also a struggle. So it usually took me an hour to do all my chores and wind down at night. And then it usually took about an hour to just pack up all my stuff and get ready for the day in the morning. And I think I could have improved my efficiency in that sense. But But on average, I mean, I was getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night, and it just didn't, like, getting less than that just didn't feel sustainable. So I don't know, I went as far as I could every day, and it did not result in a record-breaking hike. But to answer Ella's question, I guess, like, I never changed my approach to how I was hiking throughout the entire hike, like whether or not a record was at stake. So I guess, like, clearly my motivation was not only to break a record. I think I just wanted to get the best out of myself, no matter what the result ended up being. So that's why I continued to feel motivated to hike as long as I could and sleep as little as I did throughout the entire journey, because I just wanted to, and I wanted to see what I could do. All right, these next 4 questions are from Dan. What was the most emotionally challenging / difficult part of the trail? So I guess, I mean, I already touched on, some of my lows, like just hiking the wrong way, and then, missing my family and missing Chris, and kind of being in solitude for a lot of parts on the trail. But one other, I guess, challenging part of being on the trail. So, like, when I was on the trail, I could just do things on my own time, on my own schedule, wake up when I wanted to, go to sleep when I wanted to, hike as long as I wanted. But the times I had to go into town to pick up a package or buy food or try to find shower or do laundry, those situations ended up being pretty challenging because I was always kind of on someone else's schedule. I couldn't just do things when I wanted to. Like, I had to adhere to opening hours, of course, and there might only be certain windows that I can pick up the package that I mailed to myself, or I might need to do laundry, but there might be other hikers using the laundry, like, which is so completely fair. But I was in this mindset of doing everything as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So anytime that I had to wait was hard, and I had to practice a lot of patience. So yeah, that might seem like a small thing, but I mean, it's one of the pieces of the puzzle of trying to hike the trail as efficiently and as quickly as possible. You can't just bowl over everyone else and do every single thing on your terms. Like, you still have to, like, be a human and, like, wait your turn and follow the rules and just, like, be a good citizen. All right. What surprised you most about the experience? I felt excited about going for a self-supported adventure, kind of like what I was touching on. Like, I like just doing things on my own terms and making all my own decisions and just, like, only being responsible for myself. But something that surprised me was how social I was on the trail, and, like, how much just, like, the PCT community, the other hikers on the trail, the trail angels, which are, like, people that are maybe not currently hiking the trail, but they come out and do trail magic and help out hikers by giving them rides. I didn't personally take any rides, but, like, maybe providing cooking food, bringing sodas, and that, often provided opportunities for getting to talk with them and get to know them. So, on the one hand, I'm trying to be this efficient hiking machine, but on the other hand, I really enjoyed just all the human interactions of the trail, and that ended up being just like the best part by far. And I never minded stopping and talking with people because, you know, I like it, and it always gave me a boost, and it never felt like it was something that took away from the hike. It always felt like something that enhanced the hike. So like any moments of community or human connection I could get, it was like food for the soul. It was just something I found that like I personally needed from the experience. So that was really cool. Okay, what single image or moment keeps replaying in your mind? Definitely reaching the northern terminus and getting to see Chris for the first time after months of being apart. All throughout the hike, I had imagined that moment, like reaching the northern terminus, the US-Canada border, and it was extremely motivating to me through the entire hike. And then I've said this before, but like actually having it happen, like running to the terminus, like giving Chris a big hug and like touching the monument, it was like a literal dream come true because I had imagined it so many times on the end. And I just think that's so important, like with any endeavor or anything you set out to do, to have a really good idea of like what you want and how you want it to feel, and to hang on to that, like whether or not it happens. But like I feel so lucky to have things like work out the way they did. Like actually finishing the trail, there could have been all kinds of things that went wrong. There could have been fire closures. I could have gotten injured. So yeah, I imagined that moment so many times, then it actually happened. And now that it did, that is the moment that will just like always forever replay in my mind because it was such a happy moment. Okay, this is another question from Dan. What part of the trail felt the most sacred or spiritual? That's a great question. So I had a really cool day. It was in the Southern California section. I started in the middle of the night, somewhere kind of like up the mountain on a Mount San Jacinto. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And I did most of the ascent like under the stars, which was really cool. I think I saw some glowing maybe cougar or bobcat eyes during that time. And weirdly, I didn't feel scared or anything. Like it was just like, yeah, I'm out here, and there are some cats out here too. And yeah, I don't know. I felt very like I belonged there, and it was just kind of this cool experience. And that day was also the first day that I got up at like higher elevation, and there were some big trees, and it was the first time I felt cool throughout the whole journey. And then the day ended, and this is one of my longer days on the trail. It might have been around 50 miles and with like a lot of elevation changes. But the day ended with essentially a 22-mile descent off of this mountain and back into very desert-like conditions. And from where I was at the very top of this descent, like I could look out, I could see kind of these bare desert mountains. I could see the next town below, and my hope was to stay in that town that night. And then windmills off in the distance. And the trail, it had lots of switchbacks just going back and forth, back and forth. But imagine that each back and forth is several miles. The further down off the mountain I got, the trees kind of disappeared again. It was very barren, desert-like. And even though I was going down the whole time, it felt like I was making zero progress. And I was just seeing the same scenery over and over and over again. And it just sort of put my state of being in a really interesting place. And just like where I was on the mountain, kind of dipping in and out of these like divots in the mountain, I guess maybe sort of like canyon-like parts of the mountain. I don't know if I can totally explain it, but I definitely felt some kind of presence just beyond myself. And I don't know, I started to think about all the people that have maybe like walked in this place in the years or decades or centuries past. And I started to think of like my ancestors speaking to me. Not that I have ancestors that are from that region or anything like that, but I don't know. I was just, I don't know if I can fully explain what I was experiencing, but I felt like time just sort of stopped, and at the same time I felt very present and in tune with what was around me, and I felt very connected to where I was, and then just like where I was personally coming from. So that's kind of a very vague answer, but that was just like sort of a really, yeah, definitely a spiritual experience on that descent. And then like just the entire day, I just felt really present and in tune with myself, and in a way part of something bigger than myself. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's the best answer I can I can give in the best way that I can put it in words. All right, a couple more questions from John. What was your favorite section? I would say Washington as a whole. I loved Washington. It just, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I liked like if you break up the trail into the 5 major sections, Southern California, Sierra, Northern California, Oregon, Washington, I liked each section a little better than the last. I just think the trail got better and better. And Washington was just a treat, and for many reasons. I mean, yes, the scenery was beautiful, and there are parts where it really opens up and you can just see everything around you. Like, I loved how cool it was. I mean, just like temperature wise, like I loved that there weren't a bunch of mosquitoes, like at least when I was there. I loved the beautiful lakes and ponds, like beautiful alpine ponds, like way up high. And I also just, I mean, I'm sure my experience is colored by how I felt. And by the time I reached Washington, I was just so dialed in with myself and what I needed and how I could hike my best. So I was just hiking and doing, like, I felt like I was the best version of myself in Washington, but the experience was just made so rich by my surroundings too. So it was just really special. And you know, I started behind the bubble, the hiker bubble, as in I started much later than most thru hikers, way back in the desert in the middle of June. And then as I went on, I sort of caught up to the bubble, and it was a very social experience for much of the trail. But then as I got past Oregon and into Washington, and there were a bunch of southbound hikers, so there was like a southbound bubble too. But then once I got even north of that, it was kind of like back to being a solo hiker, which on the one hand was kind of hard sometimes, but on the other hand, it was like coming back to myself, which was pretty cool after all the experiences I had and all the people that I met. So yeah, Washington was just really special. Also from John, any scary animal or human interactions? Honestly, zero, which is great. I was definitely a little scared of having, I've had some scary bear encounters before, and even this section of trail that's just south of Stehekin in Washington, or the road to Stehekin rather. A couple years ago, I was out there on a section hike with a friend, and I went to collect some water, and a bear on my way back, there was a bear in the middle of the trail, and I had to go that way, and the bear was there, and then it saw me. Then it actually started following me, and I had to go back the way I came, but yelling at this bear to go away. Anyway, that was a very scary experience, and then I had to go hike that same exact section of trail again this time, so I was very on edge and on high alert looking for bears, but I didn't see any. I saw one bear my entire hike, which is actually kind of sad. It was just a young bear, a little bit south of Cascade Locks in Oregon, just up on a ridge. It was a small bear running away from me. And like I mentioned before, I saw some glowing cat eyes at night, but that's really it. Probably the actual scariest moment was a run-in with a skunk. Thankfully, it did not spray me, and I skedaddled away as quickly as I could because I did not want to get sprayed. I think we both surprised each other, but yeah, I definitely ran after seeing a skunk. And thankfully, all my human interactions were great. I felt very safe on trail. I had lots of positive interactions. I think the most negative interaction I had was I was hiking up and another hiker was hiking down, and you're supposed to yield to whoever is going up, and the guy didn't yield, so I got out of his way, and then he just went right by and didn't say anything, not even a hello or thanks or have a nice day, and I was offended. This next question is from Elena, and she asked for suggestions for Europeans doing long American trails. I'll just say, for any Europeans thinking of hiking the PCT, you will be in great company. I think every other hiker I met, so probably about half the hikers I met, were from Europe or from somewhere else in the world outside of the US. There is a strong international culture on the PCT, which was really cool. So I don't even if you're thinking of coming out and solo hiking, which I feel like most people are solo hikers. Yeah, whether you're from Europe or from the US or another country, you'll be in good company, and you'll find people if that's what you want, if that's the kind of experience you want on the trail. And speaking from my own experience of hiking some trails in Europe, so I hiked the Swiss Via Alpina, which traverses the entire country of Switzerland. And I've also hiked Kungsleden, or the King's Trail in Sweden. Based on my experiences, especially when I hiked the Alps in Switzerland, you could get away with carrying very little food Like you could just bring a few snacks with you and like not even bring a sleeping bag and just sleep in a hut or some kind of inn or lodge every night and just eat whenever you get into town. What I'm getting at is there were always towns or services or huts, like mountain huts, accessible and close by. And hiking the PCT, you have to be really strategic with planning when you're going into town and or like where on the trail to get into town and planning your resupplies. And I say that because you could be out on the trail for days without having access to amenities. So you just have to be like prepared to be out in the wilderness on your own for days at a time. And there's tons of resources out there for planning your trip, but I think that's just something that's probably like one of the bigger differences that I noticed hiking somewhere like the PCT where it can be very remote versus hiking in Europe where you might not ever be too far from food and lodging and all of that. All right, so this next question is from Jeremy. Do you think you needed a why, or is taking the quest itself enough without that added pressure? Yeah, I mean, 2,655 miles is a long way to go. And if you don't know why you're doing it, or if like you don't understand your motivation to do it, I think that'll make it really easy to quit. Or you might just find that like, oh, hiking this trail isn't actually what I wanted, even though it's what I thought I wanted. And I knew I wanted to hike the Pacific Crest Trail. I also wanted to set a record, but I think as I got into the hike, my motivation to just be out there and to complete the hike and to have the experience was much higher than setting the record. So I don't know if the question is so much why, or like should you have a why, but maybe it's like, what do you want? I think it's important to know what you want, or to know what your motivation is going into something. And maybe that's what's your why. But so yeah, I think that's totally, it depends on the individual person. Like I don't necessarily see why as pressure, but depending on what your why is, maybe that does translate into some kind of pressure. I put pressure on myself for sure. I wanted to hike the PCT because I wanted to have the experience. I also wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see how fast and how far I could go while experiencing, just like a whole new place and all the scenery, and then having, just like all these great interactions with a whole bunch of new people that I got to meet. But I'm talking myself in circles a little bit, but I'll go back to the question. Do you think you needed a why, or is taking the quest itself enough? Oh, that's very philosophical. I think the quest itself is enough, and I think you have to have a why or a motivation or a what to to even go on the quest or to be motivated to go on the quest in the first place. If that makes sense. Yeah, all right. I'm going to move on from that one for now. Okay, and then these last 3 questions are from Dan. And again, if you have more questions for me, please leave them in the comments. I can respond to them in the comments, or maybe I can send out a little text FAQ or a Q&A. I'll respond to them in the comments. Okay, from Dan. How did this experience change your perspective on everyday life off the trail? I mean, I'm still sort of easing my way in to everyday life off the trail. But I think something I realized is that like everyday life off the trail isn't so different from life on the trail in terms of myself. I mean, I guess I am the constant here, but I found that the way I was treating my hike was very similar to the way that I treat my everyday life, in the sense that I really care about maximizing my time and like making the most of it. And that means, not only trying to achieve a bunch of stuff and doing my best, but making time for people, making time for my people. And in that case, I couldn't, be there physically, but at least being able to check in with Chris and my family when I could. And then also making time for interacting with other people in person on the trail, because that ended up being very important to me on trail, and it's important in my everyday life too. And then also making time for self-care. I think you have to have a balance of yes, striving to be your best in whatever capacity that is to you, whether it's like with your family or career or yourself or all of the above. But it's like I needed to make time for self-care because I needed that to feel balanced. And what I mean is just taking the time to scrub the dirt off of myself, or maybe not always eating on the go, but just sitting down and having a proper meal and fueling my body. And I don't know. So I've found that the breakneck record lifestyle was not really working for me on trail, but I found that I could still, make really good progress and do a really good job while still kind of making time for these other things that are important to me. The question is, how did it change your perspective on everyday life? I mean, maybe I just found that I just think it's important to be well balanced and well rounded, and just make time for the things that are important to you. And that's not just an at-home thing, but I think that should be true of everything you do in life. At least that's how I feel about myself and my own things. Okay, what's something you learned about yourself out there that you didn't know before? I'm going to skip that because I think the answer is kind of the same as what I just answered. Okay, and the last question, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice at the start, what would it be? Okay, some of this I think is probably just some practical advice for myself. One, and this is kind of if I had to do over, but I would sleep in the first day and actually wait to, and this is down in the desert, US-Mexico border. I started at 4 in the morning, so it was nice and cool when I started, but then I really struggled right away in the heat, and I ended up kind of shifting towards doing a lot of night hiking and then just kind of napping during the day. So the advice I would give myself, yeah, chill out and don't actually start until maybe like 8 o'clock at night and just get onto the night hiking train in the desert. You'll feel better, you'll be able to eat better, you'll be more efficient. I think I could have saved myself a lot of time and agony that way, because it's kind of what I ended up doing, but I had to kind of adjust along the way to get there. Second piece of advice, I know you said one piece of advice, but I'm going to have a few. The second piece of advice is just to eat more food. Eat even when you don't feel like eating. I did the best job I could eating, but you can always eat more. There are times that I carried so much food, but I regretted not carrying more because I could have eaten it. So you can eat more than you think. You can carry more food than you think. Carry more food because it's going to be gone soon. The time you're going to spend carrying that extra weight is not a ton, because you're going to eat the food that you're carrying. So yeah, that would be my second bit of practical advice. And along those lines, I wish, I think I did a good job with my resupply packages, but I wish I sent myself more of everything just in case I needed it. I used more battery power than I thought I would, again with the food, and then just like practical things like wet wipes or Band-Aids, first aid. I would just say, send yourself everything you might need, and whatever you don't take with you, you can put in the hiker box. But it's way better to have more than enough than to just be like, oh man, I wish I sent myself that thing. It's an investment. It might feel like a waste of time and money, but just think of it as paying it forward, because they have these catch-all hiker boxes that pretty much any place you'd be able to pick up your package, where you can put anything you don't want to take with you in the box and another hiker can use it. So just think of it as paying forward. It's not time or money or effort wasted because someone else is going to use it, and it's just like good karma. So yeah, all right, that's it for this Q&A. And yeah, if you have any other questions, again, feel free to drop them in the comments. Coming up next will be my gear video. I'll show you everything that I took with me, what was in my pack, and just sort of do a breakdown of everything I had with me. I'll do a deep dive in all my favorite foods on the trail, just because I think that'll be fun. And if you're not already subscribed to my newsletter, it's a weekly newsletter. It's free. You can sign up at pinkfeathers.com. And that's it. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a good day.